of a small group of individuals deeply committed to water, not to forget the many brainstorming sessions, debates, and even disagreements that have brought us here today. This time we tried to be different in terms of reducing the use of paper and discouraging single-use plastic. And in the run-up to the conference, we have held women's colloquiums in each of the provinces and a youth jamboree just last week. And now, finally, we have come to this 13th and final session of the 4th Karachi International Water Conference. Without further ado, I'd like to call upon the stage our first speaker of this session, Ms. Meena Daulat Shahi, the FAO representative in Pakistan. Meena Daulat Shahi holds a master's degree in economics and a postgraduate certificate in intermediate microeconomics from the London School of Economics and Political Sciences, University of London. She started her career in 1987 as a research associate and joined FAO in 2000 as program planning and budget officer in the Office of Program Budget and Evaluation. And she was promoted to senior strategy planning and budget officer in 2003. In 2010, she was appointed Chief Unit for Field Program and Results-Based Monitoring in the Technical Cooperation Department. And she was appointed as FAO representative to Pakistan in May 2017. Ms. Daulat Shahi, can I please ask you to come on stage?
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And thank you for still a room full after 2 days of very intense discussions. Today I'm going to give you a bit of a roundup on this water, energy, food nexus. You've heard a lot of it and you've been discussing several of the topics which are related to it. So, next slide please. So, water is used for many things. You've heard it. I'm not going to repeat, but it is really at the center of lives of people, both in terms of the energy that we may derive from it or the food, and also, of course, in terms of what is needed for agriculture and other uses. We need to understand how to manage the water, and you've been discussing here. And what you got is that you cannot talk about water alone, because this doesn't lead you anywhere. Next. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, it's here. Okay. These numbers you've seen, you've gone even more in depth about them, about how much water you need for 1 kilo of rice, but more particularly for how much you need for feeding people, for example, on the 2,500 calories. 1 liter is 1 calorie. And this means that this is even a low on the low side. The overview of water scarcity we hear a lot in Pakistan, and it's not that there is water scarcity as such, is how there are additional pressures on the availability of current water and how the pattern of availability is changing. Now, one of the drivers of changing patterns is climate. But the other is increase in population. So what is the water, energy, food nexus? And is it new? It is not a new concept. In FAO, we've been using this since 2014. There are publications about it, and there are a lot of examples. But these graphs, which seems very complex, does put together the elements that are fundamental to it. These are the natural resources, then there are the competing priorities, and all the elements that assist in finding solutions. So what are we talking about really? We're talking about reconciling competing interests and trade-offs. And this framework allows to integrate the dimensions and the people that need to be around the table for that. So the analysis on Pakistan climate change, you've also heard, there's also several conferences that talk about it, but basically there's 4 main points where yields will be decreasing, the availability pattern of water will change, and the demand for water will increase, obviously. Now, what's the approach? What's the solution? Well, the solutions are here. In fact, you've heard it today, in these 2 days. There are many solutions. They are localized, they are valid, but what is missing is really how you tackle them in a programmatic manner that is coherent and integrated. And here you see the way forward to reconcile interest in trade-offs, and actually there are 3 main pieces to it. The first piece is data. You need information, but you need information that is reliable, that tells you the right story. Information is not unidimensional, and there is need to basically find how you bring up better information on how the water is consumed in Pakistan, because this is today not available. The second part is engagement. Is engagement with stakeholders. And you need to remember that for a water, energy, food nexus approach to work, it means it is people-centered to be able to identify fully what are the competing interests, priorities, and trade-offs that are at stake. The third piece is develop scenarios. There's usually more than one solution or set of solutions. So one needs to understand which set of solution gives the most cost-effective, sustainable, long-term solution to this problem. And finally, design the response options. And this is a piece which is fundamental, because this is where one needs to ensure that the policies and principles, for example, of Pakistan, the national water policy, the national food security policy, the policies at provincial level, such as the Sindh agricultural policy as we are here, that they're all aligned and they allow to move in the same direction in a way that presents no contradictions and that helps resolve trade-offs rather than create new ones. Now, you will be surprised, but the experience of FAO in many countries is that very often one of the key issues stands in policies that have conflicting goals. When you then ground them into what is needed for improving the lives of people. And finally, ensure alignment of all investments and initiatives. And I'm pleased that after me, Ilango, country director of World Bank, will be speaking, because this is another fundamental piece. The investments need to be aligned. They also need to follow the responsible investment principles. For example, the RAI, for responsible investment in agriculture. They need to make sure that there is no harm done. There needs to be good environmental and social safeguards. So these are the other elements that come around interventions that are built through an approach which looks at a nexus. So to wrap up, I want to leave you with these 6 principles that I hope are going to be picked up, and I hope will be driving and orienting you in the further work that you will be doing and in your further engagement. And it's an engagement even as individuals, of society, as academia, as investors, as business, as private sector, as institution. We all need to follow these principles. The strategy needs to be on a mutually agreed evidence base, which means we need to understand the problems in the same way. We cannot be arguing about the numbers, or if we do, we then need to find a consensus about what are the most important aspects that these facts, this evidence helps us understand. We need to ensure cost effectiveness, of course. This is fundamental, in particular with public money, but also in private money. And improve governance and institutional capacity at all levels. Because when you look at aspects of water, when you look at food security, because we're looking at the nexus, and energy, these are global public goods, which need to reach everyone, and there needs to be equality. So for this, it means you also need to have strong governance. Otherwise, it will not happen. We need to adapt the responses to local conditions. And in Pakistan, as I've been able to say in the panel this afternoon, there are a lot of localized already solutions. But they just need to be implemented in a coherent set. And the people that will benefit from them need to be around the table, as well as the institutions. And we need to ensure policy alignment between water, energy, agriculture, food security, and environment. And this is another fundamental piece, because these policies are the drivers for the investments. Finally, anticipate change through robust decision-making and the capacity to continuously reconcile, including when there's new contrasts that emerge. So this is what I had for you today. Thank you very much for having me, in particular at the closing session. And with this, I leave you with Ilango. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see this.
Ms. Dolachai, may I request you to please take a seat on my left. Our next esteemed speaker for today's session is Ilango Pachamatu, Country Director of the World Bank, who will be speaking to us on partnering Sindh in improving water governance. Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of Sindh, Mr. Imran Ismail, is going to be joining us during this session. There may be some disturbance. We may have to pause for his entrance. I apologize in advance for that. Mr. Pachamatu serves as the World Bank's Country Director for Pakistan. Mr. Pachamatu Ilangovan is a Sri Lankan national who counts over 3 decades of international development experience. He joined the World Bank in 1993 and has since served in many positions, including leadership roles in Europe and Central Asia, East Asia, Pacific, and South Asia regions of the World Bank. Mr. Pachamatu, can you please come on the stage?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Let me begin by thanking Hisar Foundation for inviting me to be here at the closing session of the 4th International Water Conference. Particularly, I'd like to thank Simi for persuading me to come to Karachi for today's session. And before me, a number of my colleagues spoke about what the World Bank is doing across water, agriculture, food, and energy. And this is a very important part of our engagement in Pakistan. Of our $9 billion program in this country, nearly 60%, that's around $3.6 billion or so, is meant for water-related infrastructure investments, technical assistance, capacity building, and policy reforms. And why do we think water is important? I'm sure over the last 2 days, you've deliberated on this topic. You've probably seen a lot of charts and data that outline the challenges around from water security to water scarcity in Pakistan. And this is why we think in a country where you've had a rich water civilization over decades, continuing to preserve your water availability for the coming generations is something we see as critically important for Pakistan's long-term environmental and economic sustainability, as well as social cohesion and inclusive development. So let me start by first walking through some headline statistics that we see in Pakistan as well as in Sindh. First, if you look at water availability and its use, there are several economies which have the same challenges as Pakistan. But if you look at some 30-odd countries which have less water availability than Pakistan, they have much bigger economies than this country. And this explains that those countries are doing very well when it comes to how they are optimizing their water use. through greater efficiency, more productivity in the agriculture sector, better operation and maintenance in the different infrastructure, whether it be irrigation systems or urban water supply. There is much better cost recovery, as well as catalyzing more private investments and reducing the amount of subsidies that actually go in an untargeted way. So those countries have been able to achieve it, and I don't see why Pakistan cannot do it. And this is where we see just not financing infrastructure alone is going to bring about the sustainable solutions. But more importantly, you also need to look at the functioning of your institutions, the adequacy of your policies, and overall, the technical capacity that is needed to be able to do research and development that actually can get Pakistan to the frontier of cutting edge in terms of doing better with water management, that is getting more out of every drop of water. And this was a publication of our water security diagnostic that we did about a year ago, which I'm sure my colleague Bill Young would have spoken about. So emerging from that, our entire engagement in the water sector, whether it be Sindh, Punjab, KP, Balochistan, or at the federal government level, has three dimensions to it. First and foremost, we look at the policy and institutional adequacy and what needs to be done in order to reform the institutions and policies for better outcomes. Second is what capacities are needed to be able to make these institutions functional, whether they be public, private, or civil society, including on raising awareness at all levels to see that water conservation and water management is much more widely appreciated. And third, it comes to the water investments. And here, for us, one measure is not the amount of financing we do, but what results we get out of it. For example, in Karachi, we just approved, along with the Asian Infrastructure Bank, a $100 million package. To us, that is not the big number. For us, that actually is a number that is required to get a bigger number. That is, how much can we get out of this money so that Karachi residents get more reliable water supply? Today, for every drop of, say every 10 drops of water, 6 drops are lost in the system. That's your unaccounted for water currently in Karachi. So for us, you can keep pumping more, you can keep pumping 400 mgd, 650 mgd. If you don't fix the losses, whether it be physical losses or commercial losses or unaccounted for water because of poor billing, then what happens is you're putting in all the investments, you're maintaining a costly system, but do the people get the benefits of continuous, reliable water supply? The answer is no. So that's why we are right now prioritizing a lot more in Karachi about fixing the systems that can provide for better water distribution by cutting down on losses, looking at how the broken pipes can be fixed, the leaking pipes can be fixed. Second is taking on Karachi Water and Sewerage Board, and to see what institutional changes are needed to make it a much more a corporate functioning body like other water utilities around the world. I have worked in Cambodia, in the Philippines. I've seen how over the years the water utility in a small capital city like Phnom Penh to a large capital city like Manila have actually benefited from bringing in private sector that has brought about efficiency gains. So this is what we are right now looking at in terms of water investments in Karachi. And for us, if we are able to succeed in the phase one of being able to support the Sindh government, the KWSB and others to fix the institutions, which itself is going to take a long time, but if we start seeing results, then that will help us to look at how we want to augment more in terms of investments to further expand the water supply network, further expand and boost water supply, the bulk water supply, and then more importantly move towards sewerage and sewage treatment so that the environmental pollution aspects can be reduced. So let me now from there move on to the rural space. And here is where I suppose the most challenges also come to us. And as you may have heard from my colleagues, if Mina spoke about how currently where the water goes, 90% to the to sort of in the agriculture irrigation. But if you look at the way if you see what the water is used for, it goes for primarily 4 crops. and wheat, sugar, rice, and cotton. And it collectively contributes to 5% of GDP. Just 5% of GDP. Okay, and is this the best use of your water? And it's easy to blame everything on climate change, and therefore we are going to get a lot more water scarcity, and we need more storage and so on. I'm not denying all that is needed, but the fact is, end of the day, are you getting the value out of your water? My answer is no, you can do more. And this is where we see that it is just not only Abhyana that needs to be fixed, it is the entire subsidy regime that you see in agriculture. Okay, these subsidies that are out there for wheat, sugar, and so on only promotes more intensive use, more intensive cropping of these, as opposed to moving away into high-value agriculture producers like fruits and vegetables. I think time has come, like how other countries have looked at their rural space, looked at the productivity gains they can get from better utilization of water. How do you diversify your crops away from just these four? I know other countries were challenged in the 90s and 2000s that went through the transition. For 2-3 years, the farmers faced problems. But I can tell you after that, when the diversification happened, all the countries have started doing better. And I think Pakistan is uniquely placed. I'll tell you why, because of the geospatial location. There are markets around China, your Gulf countries, who all look for high-value agriculture produced fruits and vegetables. And I think Pakistan has the conditions to be able to produce them in large quantities, very efficiently, and in a productive way. So this is where I would say, hand in hand with water management and conservation goes better practices for agriculture, better practices for crop diversification. Then let me move to the energy sector. And here, Pakistan has sufficient hydro capacity that can continue to build run-of-the-river as well as storage reservoirs to be able to produce thousands and thousands or more megawatts of hydropower. But again, here one has to look at the larger context of the sector efficiency. And today, if you look at the way power sector has been running with huge circular debts, it actually undermines the efficiency of your whole the sector. And therefore, it's imperative that the country over a period of time looks at managing the flow and the stock of circular debt, so it frees up the sector from current inefficiencies and ineffectiveness to be able to create the fiscal space, which in turn can help institutions like WAPDA, NTDC to start having stronger balance sheets, and also your distribution companies can become more efficient and start going to the market. What I'm saying is you have to start easing the public pressure, the pressure on just on the fiscal space available with public resources to start drawing in private capital. And you would have seen and heard from my colleague Ricard on the DASU financing model, which brings in with guaranteeing and de-risking instruments provided with a stronger balance sheet of WAPDA, how much more money was crowded into building DASU. I think that's the model we want to take forward when it comes to energy. And also moving more into the solar and wind space. So in one respect, at the World Bank, we were very delighted when we heard about this government has decided that by 2030, 30% of its energy mix would be solar and wind. And then if you add the growing hydropower, by 2030, you will have nearly 60% of your energy mix coming from solar, wind, and hydro, which to me is a much more sustainable energy model for this country, which is more affordable, which is much more indigenous, and by which you can then look at achieving greater energy security and being able to fuel your economy that is needed to accelerate growth. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, let me say, to summarize 3 major points. For the World Bank Group, both the public and the private sector side, water-related investments, water-related support for institutional building and reforms and capacity building are at the heart of our engagement in this country. Second, I believe federal and provincial governments can do more under the national water policy to continue to reform the institutions, the policies, to bring them to date, along with how other countries are doing, including taking on the low rates of Abhyana, allowing for more equitable and fair pricing in which water is priced, and ensuring at the same time the agriculture modernization, diversification takes place, and continued reliance on renewable energy is sustained in Pakistan. And the final point, it comes down to the advocacy that needs to happen, because to me, water is not just one person's function. It's going to take a collective of everybody to make water management more sustainable in Pakistan. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stay for the panel because I need to catch a flight, so please excuse me. And I'm sorry that I won't be able to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pachamathu, for telling us how the World Bank Group is partnering Sindh in improving water governance. I'd now like to call upon stage Dr. Adil Najam to tell us why climate change has become a water challenge. Dr. Adil Najam is the inaugural Dean of the Frederick S. Pardee School of Global Studies at Boston University, which was founded in 2014. Professor Najam has taught at MIT and at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, Tufts University. His research focuses on issues of global public policy, especially those related to global climate change, South Asia, Muslim countries, environment and development, and human development. Professor Najam was also a co-author for the third and fourth assessments of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. In 2008, he was invited by the UN Secretary General to serve on the UN Committee on Development. He's also a member of the President's Special Task Force on Human Development in 2001 and served on Pakistan's Presidential Commission on Higher Education in 2002. In 2010, he was awarded the Sitara-e-Imtiaz Star of Excellence, one of Pakistan's highest civil awards, by the President of Pakistan. And in 2019, he was appointed to the Prime Minister of Pakistan's Advisory Council on Foreign Affairs. Dr. Najam, may I call you upon the stage, please?
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's always wonderful to be back in Pakistan. And it's especially wonderful to be at this conference, given what it's about. I suspect this means that the governor will arrive in the middle of my speech, so I'll speak fast so that I can get it over with earlier. I do feel a bit embarrassed. It's been a wonderful learning experience. It's been a very technical and profound thoughts, ideas. I apologize because I, as a professor, should be throwing graphs and numbers at you and being technical. I won't be. I want to actually take you as far away from this room as you possibly can, not just 30,000 feet, but as you will see, a little further, to try to think about the big picture. Not just the big picture, but maybe the bigger picture. And that's what I want to do in my few minutes, and I do have a few thoughts that I want to share with you. And I want to begin with 3 questions. I promise not to answer any of those questions, because then we'll have nothing to talk about. But they're the type of questions you might want to think about as we think about this nexus of energy, food, and of course water, and in fact, if you open that nexus, then much more. The first question I want to think about is this idea. Yes. The first question I want to think about is this idea of global. What does global mean? So I want to talk about global climate change, but what does global mean? Right? We talk about global all the time, global climate, global finance, global terrorism, Hakuna Matata, everyone together. If in fact global is real, we should be able to say something about what does it mean to be in a world that's global, and what does it mean for individual people as well as governments if you are dealing with global issues. The second is I want to make this argument about living in the age of adaptation. Much of my own research and publications in the last many years have been about this idea that we now live in what I call the age of adaptation, meaning that climate is no longer a future issue. That's a lie. Those who think they have 1 month, 3 months, 10 years left are lying to you because if you're living anywhere in Pakistan, and not even if you are not, climate is already happening. And therefore, we have to not only prepare, but actually act as if we are living in an adaptation planet. And the third is, how do we think about water in this age of adaptation, if that in fact is real? So I want to do that, and as I said, I want to do it by multiple ways, but I mostly want to tell you a story. And I want to hear a story, you know, ek kahani badi purani tumhe sunani. The story is an important one. It is a story, in fact, that I want to tell you. Can I ask people who are standing at the back? The signal doesn't go. Thank you so much. So the story I want to tell you is a story of truths. It's a story of lies. It's a story of fake facts. And maybe somewhere in there are few true lies. Please keep a count. At the end, I will ask you which were the fake facts and which were the true lies. I really will. So notes nikal le, professor ko bulayenge, aisa hi hoga. So, but I want to tell you the story for the following reason. And I want to start with that idea of global. So please bear with me. I'm going to be silly. I'm going to be silly for a few minutes and be silly with me. Imagine for a moment that you are Karachi mein nahi hai. Imagine you are not in Karachi. Imagine you are not in Pakistan. Imagine you are not even in Asia. Imagine you are not on this planet. Imagine you are living on some other planet. There used to be 9. Now they say there are 8. One of them is not doing very well. And on that planet, some motasa professor has given you the assignment to write in 2 pages or less a country report. The World Bank director left, but the type of reports that the World Bank produces, a country report on the planet called Earth, as if it was a country. So if the FAO or the bank wrote a country report on Earth, what would it say? 2 pages, I actually give this to my students as an assignment, 2 pages, 12-point Times Roman, no footnotes. Here is what I would suggest it would tell you. You know all of these things, I'll just give you the summary. The country report will say, country Earth is a poor country. There are 1 billion people living on less than $1 a day. There are 2 billion people living on less than $2.50 a day. It used to be $2 a day, but the dollar isn't what it used to be, so the bank changed its measure. So you'll say, yes, it's a poor country. But you'll also come to the conclusion that it's not all a poor country. There are people like you and me who sit in these wonderful chandeliers. I don't even know how to count how many chandeliers here, and talk about poverty. So it's not, that's sloppy. The rich country, poor country is sloppy. So this is rich country, rich person, poor person. I live in Boston. I work in Boston. I work in the first world part of Boston. 2.5 miles from where I work is a place called Roxbury. It's the third world part of Boston. As some of you know, I moved back and I was working in Pakistan at Lums. I lived in the first world part of Pakistan. 2.5 miles from where I lived, there was a place called Bhatta Chowk. That's the third world part of Pakistan. So this is the champagne glass model that Dr. Mehboob ul-Haq, 80% of the wealth with 20% of its people, it's even become worse. So you will say this country is a poor country, this country is a divided country. It's not just that, it's a poorly governed country. So by all the measures we are told about what good governance is, apply them to the world and how we deal with world issues, and you will come to the conclusion that Earth is a poor planet, it's a divided planet, it's a poorly governed planet. All animals equal, 5 more equal than others. You will come to the conclusion it's not just poor, divided, and malgoverned, it's an insecure planet. Not just unnecessary war, which we have plenty of, but human security, insecurity, food insecurity, climate insecurity, water insecurity. So in all those terms, you will come to, I'm coming to the issue, give me a second. You'll come to the conclusion it's an insecure planet. You will come to the conclusion it's not just insecure, it's degraded. Its water is not worth drinking, its climate is changing, its seas are rising, its forests are denuded, its land is degraded. So all the things we talk about, you will say, this is a degraded country, right? By the actual numbers. You will come to the conclusion, not just because of Greta, that it's an angry country. Look at your television anywhere in the world, and you have young people right here in Lahore, young people in Chile, young people in Hong Kong, young people in New York, young people in London, all angry because they are in fact informed. Because now they can see through what you and I have done to them. Because they now demand that the promises that we keep making to them are actually kept. You will come to the conclusion, therefore, that it is an unsafe planet. I have a Pakistani passport, I live in the US. I am a world expert on travel advisories. If the US actually had a travel advisory by the rules they apply to countries on the planet Earth, by those measures, they would say to you, catch the first rocket ship out of here. The problem is we don't know where to go. So until that happens, the reason I'm saying this in a conference of water and energy is recognize at least that you and I do not live on a planet called Sweden. We live on a third world planet. And in my work on global policy, that's a central feature. We make global policy as if we were making it for Sweden. We don't understand Chaudhry Shahi, those 7 points I made about how third world countries work. And that is why we keep falling. So if indeed we live on a third world planet, what is happening to the climate of that third world planet? And then I'll get to water. Now, I have worked on climate forever, and I won't go into all the details. I assume everyone understands the basics. Climate change is a very simple phenomenon. Global warming, or what we call greenhouse effect, is essentially what happens if you leave your car in Karachi outside in the sun with all the windows up. Science ko itni badi nahi hai, badi seedhi si hai. If you leave your car with the windows up, the heat will get trapped. You come back to this car, it's super hot. Why? Because there was no way for that trapped heat to lose. The same thing is happening to the planet. So we went to Paris. I was at every climate COP from the first one in Bonn to Copenhagen, and then I gave up. And then I was convinced by the then Prime Minister to join the Pakistan team for the high-level delegation at Paris. I stayed one day because I didn't want to be corrupted more, and I left. I am not a fan of Paris. I'm glad it happened. But there are two big things that came out of it. One was this amazing number with lots of zeros. Itne sifre aapne pehle kabhi nahi dekhe. I bet you most of you don't even know how to write 100 billion because I didn't. And the promise was that somehow magically 100 billion will come up and be spent on managing climate change. Now, if any of you has seen the check, please let me know. If you have written the check, please let me know. So that ain't happening. The promise was actually more professional. The promise was you will spend 100 billion, which in fact may come true. The other two numbers that came out of Paris were more important. And those numbers was 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees. No one wanted 1.5 degrees. They wanted 2 degrees. That's what they had come for. And then the poorer countries, the Bangladeshis, the small islands said, ki yaar asi lage gaye. If you give us 2 degrees, we are already out of the game. So they winked and they smiled and they say, we'll try. We'll try. We knew that they will not. We knew you will not. It's not they. We knew you will not. We all knew that. True lies. We all knew you wouldn't. And therefore, I am here to tell you, I'm sorry. I'm wearing a pink sweater and smiling, but I am not happy. 1.5 is not going to be met. Remember that you heard it here first. I hope I'm wrong. I've spent my whole career wanting to be wrong. It's a lie. It's not going to be met. There is no way, no how we can reach that target right now according to the science that's there. If you want to keep believing it, please do, and wake me up when it happens. The reason I'm saying this is not, please stop talking about climate change as if it's a future issue. We need to start talking about it as if it's happening now, because it is. You don't believe me. Of course you don't believe me, right? Unless you see a graph, why will you believe anyone? Because somehow those graphs are the only thing that are real. So let me put up a graph. Let me put up a graph. This is actual climate data for every month of the world since 1850. Keep a look on that line and see what is happening. The first red line is 1.5. The second is 2. This is actual moving data for every month of every year since records have been kept. This is the life you've been living. That's 1.5. We are now in 2019. If the graph went up to 2019, you would have 6 instances where it's already gone over 1.5. Now, you can write all the reports you want about what you want to get to 1.5, but please, let's not fool ourselves because it's too serious an issue, right? I believe in climate. I believe in climate action. I think we are doing this because we don't want people to lose hope and stop doing what they're doing. Now you are saying, okay, Najam Sahab, तुसी बड़े बड़े हो गए अपने लम्ज़ वाले, लेकिन I don't live on a planet, I live in a place, right? So let me tell you what's happening to your place. This is a world map, the same data for every place on Earth, or the nearest we have. Now keep a look at what's happening in the map. That year is changing, 1934. 44, 48, 56, 57, 65. Keep looking what's happening. Real data for the points of the earth that we have the data for. Agar aap abhi nahi dare, to dar jaएं, because this stuff is real. Right? Now, if we are real, then what I'm saying is that adaptation has to happen now. We have talked about climate. This is the age of adaptation. We've talked about climate as if it's a future issue, A, and therefore the issue is mitigate, reduce emissions, which we have to do. But if you are fixated on reducing emission, you are fixated immediately on energy, because that's how you reduce emissions. Right? So the conversation on climate becomes a conversation on emission, therefore a climate conversation on energy. Now, this beautiful diagrams, has anyone seen this? I don't like wearing ties anymore, like, and I have a tie that looks like exactly this. But this is, you know what this figure is? It's a graph. My graphs are more beautiful than other people's. This actually is scientific data. This thing on the screen is the actual data for every year since 1850 of the average temperature of the world. It looks beautiful, but it's not. Right? So you say, okay, theek hai Adil Saab, 1.5, but what's 0.5 degrees between friends? Right? 0.5 changed between your waking up this morning and now. And then I say to you, I'm talking about global climate. So the IPCC just came up with a report, and it looks at what it means if we miss 1.5 and do 2. What is the difference between 2 and 1.5? I won't go through all of this, but if you think about what happens in a world of 1.5 degree change versus a world of 2 degree change, what the difference is, the extreme heat. Karachi walo yaad hai aapko? Phir aa rahi hai. Tayar ho jao. Agle saal bhi aayegi, uske agle saal bhi aayegi. And as this happens, the likelihood of it changes from 14% to 37%. Right? 0.5 degree difference, the likelihood becomes 2.6 times worse, more than twice worse. Sea level rise becomes 0.6 meter worse. Crop yields from a likelihood of 3% to 7%, 2.3 times worse. Right? Basharat Saeed is sitting here. Any World Bank wala try to keep him. He's the smartest young man working on this issue right now. And I put a name of a report that he wrote, but I put my name on it many years ago, looking at Pakistan water and agriculture. And one of the findings was, with climate change and you do nothing, cotton, rice, wheat in lower Sindh and upper Sindh and lower Punjab in 50 years goes down by 7% production. However, the good news is you take even primary adaptive steps, which are mostly about water efficiency, it goes up by 40. Why does it go up that much? Because we are so inefficient. There's so much low-hanging fruit in the system. You fix it even a little, and it goes up. Okay, so now I have to end, and I have to get to water. So if this is the world we are talking about, how did we get there? True lies. This is my all-time favorite graph of all of science that I've ever seen. This is an amazing graph. The failure of wisdom that got you here. The graph says, it's old, but the new one is even worse. 13,950 scientific papers published on climate change between 1991 and 2012. 60 of those I wrote. So don't believe them. 13,950 peer-reviewed papers on science, of which only 24 in any way reject that climate is a human-induced issue. Here's the problem. This I wish the Governor Sahib was here for. As politicians, as policymakers, as NGOs, as professors, especially as journalists, we keep acting as if there is a debate. We keep acting as if there are two sides to every question. No, there isn't. Sometimes there's only one side. It's called the right side. There is not even this much sort of unanimity, consensus on any other scientific issue I can think of. Even gravity probably has more distractors in the real science. And yet we keep talking about it as if we have to keep doing the IPCC, we have to keep finding more. Okay, age of adaptation. So the point I've tried to make is you live in the age of adaptation. That's the good news. The good news is, as a species, we are pretty good at adapting. That is why we became who we became, right? So it is cold in the morning, you put on a sweater. It is raining, you take an umbrella. That's what adaptation is, right? One way to think of adaptation is what you do when you fail to mitigate. So we are good at adaptation. The problem with adaptation is umbrella, sweater, climate adaptation always have a cost, right? Because the whole point of adapting is doing something you would not have to do if you didn't have to adapt, right? And here is where I think there is, in fact, an opportunity. So as I end, what does it mean for water? And I put this system, so seven things, and then I shut up very, very quickly. I always shut up at the right time, Ji. Ji. Governor Sahib, you have permission to continue, sir? Please. Thank you. Thank you. So I will continue here and run fast because we have our guest here. As I was saying, we now live in what I'm calling the age of adaptation. And in the age of adaptation, what does it mean for water? So I'm going to put these 7 big ideas of how you learn to live in what I'm calling the age of adaptation, this pani pani kar gayi. The first of these, and this is important, is nature. We think of climate as if it's just going to be about sea level rise and so on and so forth. It is pretty clear from the science that the first and maybe the frontal attack is nature reverting back to us. Now, all of you have seen this. When you hear about climate change and nature, what's the picture that comes to your mind? Anyone? The polar bear, right? I'm a director I'm a trustee at the WWF, and I keep telling them that's the wrong picture. That's the wrong picture. That picture seems to suggest there's a polar bear on ice in the middle of the ocean waiting for you to come and save it. Right? I have spoken to a few polar bears. That is not how they think. That is not how nature works. You threaten nature, nature hits back. And that is what nature is going to do. And that is why I put this picture, not just because it is cute. Because when you think about the revenge of nature, it is going to look at like this. And if you think, "Nahi, mere paas koi cheetah shita nahi hai mere kareeb," then this is really what it's going to look like. And it already does in Pakistan. This is the dengue mosquito. Right? So the revenge of nature is coming. Already we can see it in disease, especially in vector-borne disease. Right? And particularly I put the dengue because when I was at the VC at LUMS, one of the first crises we had was dengue had come to Lahore. There is no reason for dengue to be in Lahore. There is no reason for dengue to be in Gilgit. The dengue mosquito is supposed to be a tropical mosquito. Why does it move? It moves partly because we travel and we take it and it adapts. But it also travels because it is much better at adapting. So disease travel is one of them. The biggest thing in the age of adaptation is clearly water. Water is to adaptation what energy was to mitigation. Here is why. Think about mitigation. We need to reduce the problem emission. What do? You plant trees, you reduce energy, essentially carbon management. Right? All of you are carbon managers. Now think of what happens because of climate. If climate changes, what happens? Most of it is wet. Most of it is written in water. So water disappears. Drought. Water melts. Glaciers. Water rises. Sea level rise. Water falls from the sky like no one's business. Extreme events. Right? So water is important. Now, I'm about to become unpopular in this room. Here is one of my favorite pictures. That picture is an actual on-scale graphic of how much fresh water there is in the world. That is the Earth, and that blue dot is all the fresh water that exists in the entire planet. Right? Now you are seeing that and saying, Kinini, there's very little water. That's not true. That is more than enough water if you were to use it rightly. More than enough water if you were to use it lightly, not only for 7.5 billion people, but for 10 billion people. Here is the thing that's going to make me unpopular. I'm ending this one I want to say. And I say it with very, very great humility. 2025, what do you think? Why have I put that number? Because you've seen all these headlines that Pakistan is going to run out of water in 2025. That is nonsense. That is absolute nonsense. Pakistan is not going to run out of water. These headlines and these journalists, all these camera wala bhais, just sold us this thing. Now that doesn't mean we don't have a problem. We have a very serious problem. We have a stress problem. We have a stability problem. We have an efficiency problem. The problem is not that we have too little water. The problem is we are amongst the most abusive country in the use of water. We are amongst the least efficient users of water. Not just the farmer, you and me. It's not a question of how many dams you have. Dams I'll come to. Make the dams, yaar. Please go ahead. This dam wali conversation is also very odd, as if there's only one solution. Of any solution, it'll be a part. Okay, so I missed it, but I don't have time, so I'm going to run. The Pakistan floods is what I had put in the previous image. In 2010, I took the yellow line, which is the area of the flood in actual proportion, put it on the map of the US to explain to my students in the US what a flood in Pakistan looks like. It's from one end of the US to the other. Put the area of the Pakistan flood on a map of Japan, you don't see Japan. Put a map of the Pakistan flood on a map of Europe, it covers an area from Denmark down to France. And the point is, we have to understand what water means for real people. Not just one sector or the other, but for every sector. I'm going to totally rush through this. If we are talking about water, you're immediately talking about food, because what is food except for packaged water? I'll rush through that, because I do want to get into something. Chalo bhai. As soon as you talk about that, you talk about ecosystems. I'm also going to rush through that because I've already talked about the impact of what climate change does to nature. I want to spend just a minute on this. I usually talk about innovation in the terms of energy, right? So we think of okay, climate change, what do? You need a Prius, you need a Tesla, you need these fancy technologies. If you're in a country like Pakistan, yes, that is true, but the problem is not that your car emits too much. The problem is there are lots of people who need to be moved very fast to large places. The problem is this pictures, right? The same logic has to be applied to water. Those answers are not going to come from Stanford. Those answers are going to have to come from Karachi. You have to redefine the water problem from a Pakistan perspective. And when you redefine the Pakistan problem, that is the picture it looks like. Then you start with needs, not with fancy technology. And when you start with needs, you may actually come to much better solutions. But here is the problem. Those solutions have to come from you. They can't come from abroad, right? And that is where we are failing. Similarly on infrastructure. Immediately we get trapped in large infrastructure. I put this for energy. You think of water infrastructure, that's what your water infrastructure looks like. Your water infrastructure is the tank that you have or do not have over your slum. You start looking at water and you start looking at these fancy diagrams that I spent half my life making, and it distracts you from the fact that the question of water infrastructure, if you are in Lahore, is not looking like that to an ordinary Lahori. To an ordinary Lahori, the problem of water infrastructure looks like this. When the heat comes, you jump into the canal. I've spent too much time. As soon as I can move this, if I can. I'm not even going to go through heat, but heat and water are immediately related. This is what's happened to every city. I'm passing through it. I just want to end with and get to my end slide. My apologies. But these are not the pictures that you need to see with climate change. These people who are sleeping out there do not need to get eyes like that and eventually end up in an ED pit without a grave, without a name, just because Karachi became a little hot. And hot at a level that shouldn't kill people. People don't die of heat. People die of bad infrastructure. That is the point I'm making. I'm not going to talk about disasters here. I know. I'll just literally, I want to make a last point. Water, climate, and refugees. We are seeing this already in Dhaka. I'll show you this very small thing. This is in Africa. That's Guinea. This is 1974. Keep an eye on where it says Guinea. I'm going to fast forward that picture. 1999. What happened? There's a war in Sierra Leone. People move into Guinea. They put pressure on the resource. That is how this happens. I'm sorry, please allow me half a second. Does anyone here know what Bhola was? Bhola? Bhola changed the map of your country. In 1970, the largest natural disaster ever known to man hit Pakistan, off the coast of what was then East Pakistan. In a span of about 15 seconds, 7 lakh people disappeared. It was called Cyclone Bhola. If you've ever heard the song, Mauj Bade Ya Andhi Aaye, Diya Jalaye Rakhna Hai, the reason Shahnaz Begum was singing it, a Bengali singer, is that the Mauj was Bhola. This was, much like the Dam Fund, the song that proceeded on PTV, asking you to give money to the refugees. That didn't work. I'm not making a political statement. Mukti Bahini partly grew in the refugee camps out of the resentment that the West Pakistanis did not care. Right? I really apologize about this. I'm not going to go into the insecurity thing beyond because I don't have time. Agar aap aakhri slide I'm going to move through this. This is a model, and I don't think this is the time for this on how insecurity works. I'm not going to talk about it just because I don't have time, but I want to put the last slide, and then I promise to shut up. And the last slide, which will come right after that, is about water. Pakistan is one beautiful country. If you haven't seen that picture, I believe you have it in your WhatsApp. You receive these pictures every day. Beautiful, beautiful Pakistan. I've spoken this morning about how we are defined by our climate. Even our love stories come from our climate. Soni comes from climate. Mahiwal comes from climate. Sindhu comes from climate. Here is the ugly side of beautiful. Do you know what that picture is about? That picture is about a lake called ATTABAD. Sorry, Simi, I'll end with the story. ATTABAD is beautiful. You have 100 pictures of it on your WhatsApp. Here is the thing about the ugly side of beautiful. Until 2010, there was no ATTABAD lake. There is no record of there being an ATTABAD lake. There was a landslide. There was a village called ATTABAD. That village no longer lives. It has instead become something that lives on Instagram. These Gora Babus come and take beautiful pictures and tell you how beautiful your country is. ATTABAD, the village, is no longer there. Because that landslide created the water that created the lake. Some good things came out of it. But that's the question. If an enemy country had come and taken away your village, how would you have reacted? If an enemy country had come, I'll ask the gentleman here, like, I know you're on duty, and had taken a village, how would you have reacted? Water came and took away your village, and you take Instagram photographs. Think about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Najam, for that very thought-provoking presentation. May I please request you to take a seat on stage? Thank you. Next, I'd like to call upon Meher Maka Naushirwani, who will be reading the conference declaration. Meher Naushirwani is a gender development and environment expert. She's a core member of the conference committee, and she's on the board of governors of Hisar Foundation.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The conference declaration at the moment is in draft form. It will be finalized in the next few days and put onto the conference website. Once it is final, it will be in our conference report. But as it stands now, I shall read it out. It states, "We celebrate the success of the 4th Karachi International Water Conference. It brought together a diverse range of stakeholders, especially women's groups, youth, regional, national, and international organizations, researchers, professionals, decision makers, business innovators, practitioners, and experts. The conference considered the original water, energy, food concept applied to water security, access and supply, food and energy, with water holding center stage. The Nexus approach allows exploration through the prism of valuing water, food, social and economic inclusion, gender and youth, water governance, water infrastructure, and investment. Delivering water, energy, and food for all in a sustainable and equitable way is one of the major challenges faced by society. The conference explored these themes, and we believe the aim must now be to build on the ideas and solutions and keep up the momentum to bring the water, energy, food nexus to a wider audience, foster thinking, develop innovative solutions, and work towards greater implementation on the water agenda in the 21st century of Pakistan. Such further engagement will see the emergence of an agenda for research, policy, and action on water, energy, and food, and connections developed between developed and developing countries. The conference noted the disconnect between practice and academia, as well as between the work of NGOs and the private sector. We need to value the work on the ground done by NGOs, as well as those relevant solutions developed by the private sector. However, all stakeholders' practices should align to the objectives and principles of the national policies on water and food security. We believe the lessons from the Murray-Darling Basin continue to be relevant for the Indus Basin and will enhance our linkages with the Australian government to ensure continued mutual learning. We are opening a new chapter with Australia. It faces and has faced similar challenges which it has managed successfully. The conference recognized the pivotal role of gender in the food and energy nexus. Women are needed in policy making at all levels of the water sector as guarantors of water reforms. Women and girls and the way they are impacted by access of water, food, and environmental entitlements constitutes a large part of the picture and, more importantly, a large part of the solution. The conference recommends continued water discourse with young people, girls and boys, taking due care in closing the digital and gender gap. We pledge to develop committed water professionals and mainstream young people in the water sector. We can look at the water, energy, food nexus as the central pillar of the Sustainable Development Goals and recognize its usefulness in addressing competing priorities. The conference recognized the essential role of citizens' groups in bringing the debate on water to the forefront. We all know the challenges. Now we must focus firmly on solutions. As the water crisis grows, we will continue to double our efforts. Pakistan has risen to the challenge before, and we can do it again. People accepted the citizens' water policy because it is realistic and precise, with clear goals and time frame. We have seen growing concern and response from government. We welcome the support, interest, and commitment of the President of Pakistan and Governor Sindh, and urge them to take these recommendations to all levels of provincial and federal government. This conference calls for the coordination, people-centric provincial and national policies using the following principles. Base strategies on a mutually agreed evidence base, ensure cost effectiveness, improved governance and institutional capacity at all levels, adapt responses to local conditions, ensure policy alignment between water, energy, agriculture, food security, and environment, anticipate change through robust decision-making and adaptive management. The Hisar Foundation pledges, we will continue deepening and strengthening the dialogue among different stakeholders and promoting data-driven inclusive solutions. The Panjwani Hisar Water Institute will foster multidisciplinary integrated research with relevance to the water, energy, food nexus, and produce the person power required to face the water challenges of the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Meher. May I please ask you to take a seat on stage? Thank you. Next, I'd like to call upon Simi Kamal. What do I say about this lady? She's the visionary behind Hisar Foundation, the founder of Hisar Foundation. She's an idealist and she thinks anything is possible and Hisar Foundation can do it. She's the advisor of Panjwani Hisar Water Institute, the chair of the academic committee of Hisar Foundation, and of course, my biggest inspiration and mentor of 10 years. Simi, please come on stage.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, and a special salam to you, Governor Sahib. Nice to meet you again, and nice to have you here again with us. I'm going to talk about the Panjwani Hisar Water Institute. This was a dream. It started maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago. I think the seeds were sowed at that time. And we wanted to see a water institute that would truly reflect what needs to be done in Pakistan, and to be able to do the intellectual underpinnings and discussion and debate to come up with the kinds of knowledge base we need, the kind of data we need, the kind of research that is needed, all of it to be anchored in society and to meet the solutions that we talk about so frequently. Yes, everybody has identified the problems. Now is the time to do solutions. So with that in mind, we have some great friends along the way, and you will be hearing from them a little after me. But first, I would like to show you a little film clip that will give you an idea of what this institute will look like. The building is already designed, and we are now in the stage of finding the funds to make it happen. Can you run it, please?
Water is life, and it is everyone's responsibility. Hisar Foundation is a not-for-profit organization working for water, food, and livelihood security all over Pakistan. Hisar Foundation is now embarking on its most ambitious project, the establishment of the Panjwani Hisar Water Institute. The institute is being established with generous financial donations by Panjwani Charitable Foundation on land provided by the NED University of Engineering and Technology and with the expertise provided by Hisar Foundation. The Panjwani Hisar Water Institute is designed to be a leading water institute for the 21st century. The institute aims to integrate the currently isolated nodes of engineering, water sciences, economics, social and behavioral sciences, and to advance the fundamental understanding of the complexities of water challenges and find their solutions. It will have one foot in academia and the other in good practice and citizenship. The Panjwani Hisar Water Institute will be the first of its kind in Pakistan and the region. Panjwani Hisar Water Institute will have 5 labs covering all aspects of water, including water ecology and remediation, coastal and riverine hydraulics, water psychology and behavioral sciences, total water quality, data analytics. Water is life, and it is everyone's responsibility. Let us all get together to conserve water and improve its management. Let us make Pakistan a water-secure country for our children and their children. Support the efforts of Hisar Foundation by joining the cause of providing water, food and livelihood security all over Pakistan.
So that is my dream, the dream of Hisar Foundation, and I hope the dream of many of you present here. So Sana, I'm done. Thank you so much.
Simi, please take a seat to my right. I'd next like to call upon Ms. Nadra Panjwani, the chair of the Panjwani Charitable Foundation and the seed donor of Panjwani Hisar Water Institute, to tell us a little bit about the story of Panjwani Hisar Water Institute. Ms. Nadra Panjwani is a social worker and a philanthropist based in Karachi. She's the founder and managing trustee of the Panjwani Charitable Foundation and Trusts. In 1994, she established the Zainab Panjwani Memorial Hospital in memory of her late mother. In 1997, she commenced the establishment of the Dr. Panjwani School Complex for the Blind. Her latest project is the Dr. Panjwani Center for Molecular Medicine and Drug Research in the University of Karachi. Ms. Panjwani is a founding director of the Pakistan Human Development Fund, which was established in 2002. She's also a recipient of the Sitara Imtiaz and Tamgha Imtiaz. Please, Ms. Nadra Panjwani, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellency Governor of Sindh, Imran Ismail Sahib, respected guests, dear colleagues and friends, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Even though this is the closing session of what has been a very exciting and productive two-day international conference on water, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank all participants for their engagement with us. As you know, we are in the segment titled Unveiling of a Dream, Panjwani Hisar Water Institute at the NED University. Therefore, I would like to share with you briefly the genesis, the rationale, and the objectives of this project from my perspective. I met Ms. Simi Kamal, the founder of Hisar Foundation, way back in 2008 when I was doing a stint in the Sindh cabinet and had charge of the Ministry of Women Development and Population Welfare. She met me to discuss the services of her foundation in the field of water security for the vulnerable segments of society and told me about her interventions in water-stressed areas like Thar. I was taken by her passion for water and also began understanding more clearly the gravity of the water challenges of Pakistan. A couple of years later, when she and her colleagues invited me to join the governing board of the Hisar Foundation, it was with great pleasure and interest that I accepted this, and thereafter got more deeply involved with water advocacy and water issues. As for the NED University, it has been my pleasure, my privilege, to have been associated with this premier university of Pakistan for nearly 2 decades now. As member board of governors of the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, I served for 8 years on their senate and their syndicate, and thereafter have remained engaged with them in the same capacity for a long time. Professor Sarosh Lodi Saab is an academic par excellence and a man of vision. He has already established a number of key strategic departments at the NED University, which will better equip us to handle the many transformations coming our way in the wake of the disruptive technologies with their superior attributes, which will potentially change how we operate our businesses and industries. In my view, taking the Hisar Foundation to the next level required extensive research, publications, and linkages with industry and academia, which could then provide the basis of changing the way we think about water, the way we use water, and the way we preserve this precious commodity. My association with these two excellent organizations who through collaboration could synergize this common objective led to the idea of establishing the Panjwani Hisar Water Institute at the NED University. Panjwani Foundation is dedicated to the cause of human development in Pakistan and has established a number of successful organizations, primarily in the fields of health, special education, higher scientific education, and women empowerment. All of these being crucial areas for upliftment of our people. We feel that water, in its larger context, is very much a requirement for human development. Water is the basis of life and happiness. It is the basis of good health. It is the basis of sustainability and livelihood. And the Quranic verse, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ, and we made from water every living thing, describes the significance of water most holistically. My team and I at the Panjwani Foundation take great pride in being the lead donors and facilitators for this project, which we feel has long-term strategic importance for our people, for our children in terms of their health and well-being. Today, Pakistan, with her burgeoning population and quickly depleting water resources, is a water-scarce country. It is high time for us to put into place a series of integrated measures to halt the possibility of running dry. This research institute will be one block in the larger edifice of water security for Pakistan. Through our research, our innovations, our interventions, and advocacy, we hope to provide big and small solutions for our water issues and bring about an attitudinal and behavioral change among our people with respect to water. And the good news is that we have already kick-started our academic programs. Earlier on in August this year, the President of Pakistan inaugurated the session for the launch of our academic programs. Our think tank activities will produce and disseminate publications based on solid facts and research findings, and we hope that our governments at the local, provincial, and federal levels will use our findings and insight in the interest of rational policy formation. Here I would like to thank Vice Chancellor Lodi Saab for embracing our project with open arms and for facilitating us in every manner. My gratitude to my colleagues at Hisar for their commitment to the cause of water and for giving me the opportunity to partner with them in this mission. I'm also grateful to so many members of the international community for attending this forum and for upholding the view that water is indeed a transnational and transborder issue. Mr. Governor, we are grateful to you for supporting our cause. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sharing this occasion with us. God bless you all, and thank you again.
Ms. Nadra, can you please take a seat on the stage? Thank you. Next, I'd like to call upon Dr. Sarosh Hashmat Lodi, the Vice Chancellor of NED University of Engineering and Technology, to talk about the academic program at Panjwani Hisar Water Institute at the NED University. Dr. Sarosh Lodi is the Vice Chancellor at the NED University of Engineering and Technology. He has a PhD from Heriot-Watt University, Edinburgh, UK. He has also served as Registrar at NED University and has been actively involved in academic research and academic administration activities. He's also served as a member of many national committees, including Council for Works and Housing Research, Ministry of Science and Technology, National Highway Council, Pakistan Building Code. And he's also been the co-chair of Hisar Foundation's Universities for Water Network. He has over 90 international publications, and he has helped manage planning, development, and execution of earthquake simulation laboratory and advanced structural engineering laboratory, in addition to managing numerous and small development projects for the department and the university. Dr. Lodi, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Respected Governor Saab, respected participants and the delegates for this conference, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. While I was listening to the mesmerizing and wonderful lecture, I would rather say, delivered by Dr. Adil Najam, I was wondering how many Adil Najams we have in this country, of about 220 million people. But don't you think we need a lot more Adil Najams, to make this country a wonderful place? But how is it going to happen? That's something that is $1 million question. And if I take you back on a larger scale from Adil Najam to China, China is the largest country in the world. And Singapore and Hong Kong are some of the smallest countries in the world. But they have one thing in common, and that are strong economies. Why do they have strong economies? Because they have the best quality human resource available. People like Adil Najam. It's as simple as that. My job, being the head of an institution which is almost 100-year-old, is to produce people like him so that we can have better governance. When we were looking at the country Earth profile, one of the issues was the management. And management cannot be done by anything except the good quality human resource. Despite of all the resources that we have, And despite of successive governments, and every government that comes in has sincerely tried to improve initially. But then the end result is not very different, unfortunately, in the last 72 years, because we don't have any capacity to do anything really. We always try and aim high, but we always fail also, only because we don't have the good quality human capital. And the whole idea of having this Panjwani Hisar Water Institute at NED University is to try and create the good quality human resources, at least in the area of water. And it's not going to be limited to water engineering. We're talking about all segments which is related to water and some of the dimensions. Sir, I'm not plagiarizing. So that's why I'm referring to your presentation, even though I'm encroaching into your presentation without your permission. But but you know, you just look at the dimensions of what this water can do. Starting from violence to disasters to insecurity to anything that we can imagine. And we would like to have developed that human capital. And you know, and that's my job also. I mean, apart from a dream, it is also my professional responsibility to ensure, provide good quality human resource to the country and secure the future of the country. That's my professional commitment as well. I met Mrs. Panjwani a few years ago. She was the member of our syndicate, and she invited me to this water conference. And I am still indebted to her for this wonderful introduction, and this is where I met Simi Kamal, Zuhair Saab, Ashraf, and everybody. And then there was a complete new dimension that opened. And there we are. When I found out that there is a plan to have a water institute, I kept on praying and kept my fingers crossed. Let them make a decision about NED University. And finally, the good, wonderful news was broken by Ms. Simi Kamal. And finally, we are in the process of now, taking off very soon. The academic program, as mentioned, has already started. The Honorable President has inaugurated the academic session in this very hall a couple of months ago. And then there is successive courses that have been taken place. We would like to have, and I must also mention that the donations for the buildings are being sought, and I'm sure we will getting the support from the community and the society shouldn't be a big problem at all with the kind of institute that we are preparing. Everybody knows the level of commitment these three organizations have. But at the same time, I must also mention that the government of Pakistan is not falling behind either. And we have submitted a proposal to the government of Pakistan, which is in the process of approval for equipping these 5 laboratories. So the equipment and the support is coming from the state to the government of Pakistan, the federal money, and the building is through this private donation. And I would like to set this wonderful example of public-private partnership to support public institutions. Like Dr. Najam, and I keep on referring back to him because I'm a little jealous. I thought I was going to be the best speaker of the day, but he stole the show. So, and I admit my defeat as well. I've been trying to get hold of him. And he doesn't know Karachi's reputation. Once you are in Karachi, you can't leave Karachi without our permission. Anyway, so I'm thankful to the Governor Saab, I'm thankful to everybody, and I look forward to your support. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Dr. Lodi. I've been asked to be brief, but I have to introduce this person, so I'm going to be very, very quick. Next, I'd like to call upon stage Mr. Zohair Rashid. He's the man behind the vision of the Karachi International Water Conference. It was in 2013 that he said, no, we must do this. He provides the drive and thrust and always reminds us to focus on efficiency and effectiveness. Please.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. I think if I am good in my research, the average age in this hall must be 40 years old, thereabouts. So one would say, all of you who are 40 years old, Leila, come forward, Leila. How old are you? 13, so come around. So you think, when you were 13 years old, what were you thinking? And I know what I was thinking when I was 13 years old. I'd like you to meet Leila. And she's 13 years old, as she said. Come here, Leila. So, Leila, tell me, what's your full name?
My name is Leila Alam.
Okay, and why are you here?
Well, some of you might know and others may not, but I, with the help of my dad, filed a petition challenging the Punjab government and the PEPC because of their underreporting of the severity of the smog in Lahore. So that's why I'm here.
So she is 13 years old. At age 13, she has more wisdom than 40-year-old because their priorities are different. Their priorities is nature, saving the environment. And there is a lot that we can learn from them. She has come from Lahore. So tell me a little bit more, what are you doing to fight for your cause?
So first of all, I'm honored to be invited to the Water, Energy and Food Nexus, even though my statement is not at all related to it. So, as you know, I come from Lahore, which is now synonymous for its toxic air. That might come in the form of an engulfing haze or in the form of the infamous smog. So, again, I filed the petition, and with the help of my friends Laiba, Michel, and of course my dad, who is the lawyer, we challenged the air quality index used by the Punjab government, as the measurement system was drastically different from the classification employed by the US EPA, which it claimed to be. So, for example, the air quality on an ordinary November morning, weekday, would be 300. So the US EPA would classify that as hazardous. However, the Punjab government instead classified it as merely moderate. So there is a big discrepancy here. There's a big difference.
So tell us, what do you want to be when you grow up like us?
I've no idea.
So is there a message you want to give to this group?
Yeah, so people have a tendency to tell me that I'm exaggerating whenever I bring up the crisis. This is mostly because it scares them. For some reason, these people, and quite often it's my classmates, my teachers, or even politicians, they try to ignore us because they think that blocking us who are making the fuss out, that will somehow make this issue go away. This is why I filed the petition. I wanted the government to, instead of pointing fingers and blaming India for all of the smog, I thought maybe my case would encourage them to have a mature discussion about the smog instead of just avoiding it and blaming everyone else. So. As time passes, I can see that smog slowly begin to affect my daily life. I can no longer go outside. I can't climb trees. I can't pick oranges. I can't sword fight with bits of bamboo. Because whenever I go outside, I get migraines. My eyes begin to itch. My friends feel short of breath. You know you are experiencing a crisis when children just can't be children anymore. So, this pollution infringes on every child's right to live, everybody's right to live. I fear for all the children who expose themselves to this on a daily basis. This smog has taken away my right to be a bacha, to be a kid. And yet, I'm one of the lucky ones. So, do think you Karachiites should be very grateful that you don't need to fear your every breath for the damage it might cause on your internal organs. In many ways, living in Lahore is breathtaking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where do you sit? Do I go?
Yeah, just go back. So for a change, this Karachi-Lahore rivalry, for a Lahori to come here and say the Karachi air is better than Lahore, that in itself is an improvement. Now to the business's hand, I know the Governor Saab is pressed for time. We would like to, during his presence, acknowledge all the sponsors who made it possible for for us to hold this conference. And if I can request the sponsor representatives who are here. Dania, can you bring the shield here? May I request the representative from Engro, Fawad? May I request the representative, Fawad, idhar se aa jaye. May I request the representative from FAO to come to the stage and receive the plaque? Meena? The representative from the World Bank, I think it's Basharat. Mohsin from IMI. Mohsin, are you here? There you are. And is there someone from the Australian delegation or AusAid? John? Yes, Mohsin first. And representative from ATC, either it's Amber, please. And representative from Aurat Foundation. Ji Ajay. And representative from News One. Is there someone from News One? Seema. The face of News One, Seema Tahir. Aap idhar se aa jaye. We also had support from others like Hashu Foundation, UBL, CapNet, Thardeep, Micro Foundation, HUPCO, ASA, Rasta, Oxfam, and we will provide them the shield. And one of our main supporters for, I think, last 6-7 years has been the Oaks. And I don't know if the Oaks people are here, but Mehnaz, if you can stand up. Governor Sahab, Oaks has been a big supporter of Hisar Foundation, and these are ladies together. Yes, thank you very much. May I now request Governor Sahab for you to give us the remarks.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. Ashraf Kapadia, Zohair Rashid, Ms. Nadira Panjwani, Dr. Saroj Lodi, Ms. Seema Kamal, Adnan Asdar, Jay Prakash, my MNA, Honorable panelist, member Hisar Foundation, Hisar and Panjwani and Hisar Foundation, Assalamu alaikum. I'm honored to be here today, and I'm no expert on water, I tell you what, to begin with. But what I know is that in my city, in my Suba or my country, there's a huge shortage of water, and we seriously need to join our heads to work together on it. And Hisar Foundation is undoubtedly doing a fabulous job, and not only by creating the water awareness, but also providing the solutions about water. So when I was living in DHA Phase 8, it was a 1,000 square yard house with a small garden. And that garden I was unable to maintain it because of shortage of water. There was so much shortage of water that I was thinking of getting rid of my garden and converting it into a cemented or a concrete jungle. While I was thinking about it, my guard who used to work at my house provided me a solution. And he said, we can take water from the main gutter line. I can put a filter in it, and we'll pump it with a small pump, and we'll provide water to the garden. with sprinklers. And the total expense bill that he gave me was under 150,000 rupees, and the water was free. So we did it. We tried. It was wonderful. Everything was working well. Until one day I received a notice from one of our agencies that you can't do that. You can't reuse the water, the wastewater. And I was astonished because I was propagating this to all my neighbors and everyone that you should also adopt the same process of getting your gardens green, reusing the water. And here I was dumbstruck. I didn't know what to do, and I went to that. I don't want to name the agency. They will feel threatened now. I went to their office and I asked, what's wrong with reusing this water? They said, no, you can't use it. This is government's property. So the wastewater that we are throwing in the sea, the raw sewage, you can't filter it, process it, and reuse it. This is the only country I've ever heard about it. So why I narrated this incident is that we need to reinvent the wheel here. We need to change the way we think. We need to readopt. We need to do what the rest of the part of the world is doing. People have changed the designs of their constructions. They are using the water again and again and again. So there are 3 or 4 times we are reusing the water, and we are throwing water like anything. For instance, institutes like masjid or church or anywhere else where we use a lot of water, and that purest form of water just goes directly to the gutter lines and then it converts into the waste. And as a courtesy, वो बंदा जो वुज़ू कर रहा है वो नल खुला छोड़ के उठ के चला जाता है कि पीछे वाले को तकलीफ ना हो कि वो उसको नल खोलना पड़ेगा. So हमें ये थोड़ा सा लोगों को सिखाना पड़ेगा कि आपको कैसे वाटर को रीयूज़ करना है. For this, I asked my friend Adnan, he's sitting here luckily, that I saw a small gadget, a very small gadget that you insert in your tap. It reduces up to 90% of water use. So it converts it into, it aerates the water, and so you can reduce the amount that you use to wash your hands or something like that. So we are in process to import those and distribute them free in the institutes like universities, mosques, mandirs, and churches. Everywhere where general public comes and use water, we want to provide them for free. We want to monitor it. We want to see how it works. And if it really works well, then we plan to go big on this. So initially, we are planning to import something like 1 million pieces of those small gadgets. We have the samples already with us. One of it is working in my bathroom. So I get irritated sometimes, because the amount of water is less. But believe you me, it's working beautifully. I got used to it in a month's time. It's wonderful. So that's what we are trying to do. The other thing that right now we are doing to get over with the water crisis in this city is immediate effect is water desalination. So we are very close to finalize the deal with the agencies here. The problem is that if you want to install a desal plant, who would you sell it to? It's water board. So the water board is not ready to buy the water at the price that you want to sell, like 60 pesos per gallon, 70 pesos per gallon. And the water that you are buying in Bowser's is not costing you less than 2 rupees or 3 rupees a gallon. So water on wheel is the most expensive proposition one can give. So we want to get rid of this, and we want to see how desalination works. So we are about to close this deal with the agencies like Water Board and CBC. CBC is moving much faster than the water board is, but 90% of the city comes under water board. So water board needs to get on board very quickly on this, and this is where the Sindh government, where all the plans needs to go through them, and we are trying to build a working relationship so that we can get all the plans for the city, at least for providing water to convert waste into energy and to protect our sea from the garbage that we are dumping in every day. There's heaps of what we are doing. So we need to redo it or redesign it somehow, despite of the political rivalry we may have, despite of the difference in thinking or difference in policies. We need to do something very quickly before it's too late. I was introduced to Nadra Panjwani Sahiba sitting here through my Prime Minister about 2 decades ago, when he was deeply involved in his Shaukat Khanum hospital, and the party was a new baby, only 2 years old. And he asked me that whenever you need funds for Shaukat Khanum, just go to Nadra Panjwani and ask her. So the first time when I went to her house in DHA, I guess it was on Zamzama, yeah. When I went there, we needed funds for Shaukat Khanum. I think we were importing PET scanning machine or something like that. So I went to her and I said, Khan Sahab ne mujhe kaha ki aapse jaake main request karun for the funds. And she goes, how much do you want? I said, I don't know, but I'm just here. She said, no, you must have a figure. So I thought of a big figure, and I told her that this is what I want. And she said, all right. She went inside, she brought a checkbook, and gave me 3 checks. And when I looked at the check, there were 3 checks of the amount, exact amount that I asked her. Say if I asked her for 1 crore, so there were 3 checks of crore each. So I was so thankful to her, and then she gave me a lesson that day. She said, when you are doing a good job for people, not for yourself, you're not asking for yourself, don't shy. Go for it. You are the one doing a good job, not me. So I was so encouraged by these words and everything else, and after that I didn't stop asking. So thank you, Mrs. Nadra Panjwani, for everything that you did for Shaukat Khanum. You must be doing by now. I don't know what you were doing now, because after that, I was more involved in politics with Khan Sahab, less in Shaukat Khanum. But if you ask me to give you 10 biggest donors' name for Shaukat Khanum, Nadra Panjwani stands one of them. So once again, I'm grateful. This government is seriously thinking about to get over with the water crisis. I am very impressed with Leila, what you are doing in Lahore. You can do the same in Karachi. We are going through the waste management crisis, file a petition on waste management also, so that all the agencies who are responsible for collecting waste from Karachi should get a lesson from this. We are children of no lesser God because Karachi, cleanliness in Karachi is very poor, and it deserves better because Karachi gives more to the national exchequer than any other city. If you single out the cities in Pakistan, Karachi is the one. So I'm thankful to Hisar Foundation. I'm thankful to the people who are organizing it, people who are working in it. I know, Simi, I don't know how you find time to work for Hisar because you are doing a big job. You're representing a bank here, one of the largest bank in Pakistan. Dr. Hashmat, you know that Simi? That's Simi, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Dr. Hashmat, thank you so much. He's one of the most charming vice chancellors that we have in Pakistan, at least I met. He is, and I'm not talking about the looks. Of course, he's a good-looking man, but I'm talking about the smartness here, because he's one of the best person I've met. And at times I ask him to advise me on different things, not only on water, but the other things also. And he's also playing a very important role in the education. So I'm thankful to all of you. Everyone here is as important as the other guy here sitting on the stage or not, doesn't matter. You all need applause, because you are really heroes of Pakistan. You're working for a great cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Governor Saab. I'd like to call upon stage chairperson of Hisar Foundation, Ashraf Kapadia, to present a shield of appreciation to the Governor, Mr. Imran Ismail, as a token of gratitude. Thank you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, may I please ask you to remain seated. There's just a little bit, but a very important segment of this conference left. Please remain seated. Thank you. While we wait, okay, I'd like to now call upon Ashraf Kapadia, chairperson of Hisar Foundation, and the chair of the Conference Management Committee, and the person who keeps us all on track. Ashraf Saab, can you please come on stage for the vote of thanks?
Oh, thank you, Sana. I don't know whether I keep you on track or not, but somebody has to keep me on track on which one to use. But anyways, it's now my privilege to give the closing remarks for the 4th Karachi International Water Conference. And I'm sure that all of you had a useful, engaging and productive time at the conference. दो में से एक तो चली जाएगा. We are once again grateful to His Excellency Dr. Arif Alvi, President of Pakistan, for gracing the opening plenary session, and to His Excellency Imran Ismail, Governor of Sindh, for gracing the closing plenary session. The 4th Karachi International Water Conference focused on the thematic areas related to water, energy, food nexus. It provided a neutral platform where thought leaders, distinguished speakers, panelists, and delegates from all walks of life came together to deliberate on a wide variety of issues. Speakers, panelists, and delegates shared their knowledge, research, innovation, and insight with other delegates at the conference. This sharing helped us in drafting the conference resolution on the agenda for the 21st century, which was read out a little while ago. There were many high-profile speakers from Pakistan and all over the world who shared their knowledge and delivered a number of very thought-provoking keynote addresses, and I would like to thank all the speakers for their participations. Thank you to all. We had many panel discussions on a wide variety of topics, which were extremely interesting, challenging, and provocative. All the chairs and panelists did a wonderful job, and I would like to thank them for their contribution to the discussions. And we had a very interesting fireside chat, and Adil Saab just stole the show all over. And that kept all the delegates so engaged throughout the chat. And I would like to thank Adil Najam Saab and the other participants of the chat for a fantastic fireside chat. Lastly, we had an innovative cafe-style setting dubbed as the Cafe of the Unheard, where a large number of delegates were able to interactively engage with world-renowned thought leaders on a topic of their choice. I would like to thank all the leaders and delegates who participated in the Cafe of the Unheard. This two-day conference is the culmination of months of efforts and hard work by the staff of Hisar Foundation and its supporting partners. I would like to recognize Hisar Foundation's team and ask them to join me in front of the stage as I call out their names. Dania Khalid. Dania, please. Kausar Hashmi. Atir Jilani. Ahmad Palwa. Nadeem Siddiqui. Sirajuddin Khan. Ashok Kumar. Muhammad Imran. Urs Usmani. Farwa Hussain and Farwa Tasadduq. Wasif Rashid and Danika Kamal. Please join us on the stage and please give them a big hand. I have forgotten about Sana. And of course, Sana Baksa Musa and her babies who will join us on stage. She professionally managed and led this team so that we could deliver on all our promises. This team has been working day and night, and they have been working on days and weekends to ensure that you had a useful and productive conference. Please give them a very big hand. Thank you. If we can still remain here, I'd like to get some more people on stage just to check out whether the stage is sturdy enough or not. I'd like to recognize our event management company, Jump Activations. They have been extremely professional and cooperative. In fact, wherever we said jump, they said how high. I would like to ask some key members of the Jump team to join the Hisar team in front of the stage. And they are Yasser Harikar, Jibran Mir, Nasreen Bukuj, and Ali Ansari. Can you, which one are there? Join us on the, okay. Lastly, I'd like to recognize our social media partner, Starlinks, who has made us all stars. Please join the Hisar team in front of the stage. Sana, is she there? I think she has gone to meet the stars. So thank you, Starlinks, also. So thank you very much for this great team. If you can now get down. The stage has survived. Thank you. Okay. Now, is Zuhair not back yet? I was just going to embarrass the two people without whom none of this would have been possible. Zuhair Ashir, unfortunately, has disappeared. But I was going to first Zuhair Ashir, who is my childhood friend, or as we say, Langotia Yar, whose tireless efforts and utmost dedication is an inspiration. I don't know where he is, but when he comes up, I'll ask him to join us. And second is Simi Kamal, who continues to be the guiding beacon and driving force behind Hisar Foundation. Please join the team. Please come up. There's a place here. So a very big hand to Simi and Zuhair in absentia. This brings us to the end of the closing plenary, and I hope that all of you will be able to join us for the 5th Karachi International Water Conference, which will be held in November 2021. So mark your calendars. Inshallah, we will see you 2 years from now. So stay tuned and keep in touch. At the end, I would just like to reiterate that water is life, and it is everyone's responsibility. Thank you very much. With that, we close the session.